Alright, so I got this thing here. This is a package tray for a VW bus, if you don't know. If you're just new to the channel. And it's got all these rust holes in here. And it's kind of, you know, it's 100% cosmetic. There's nothing structural about it. So, you know, the options are we can kind of go, you could cut this out and weld pieces in. And then grinding in these corners would be near impossible. There's no, you'd have to have, you know, a special tool to get in there. Maybe like a you know, some sort of a Dremel type thing. You could get in there maybe. It'd be really hard to grind and clean if you were to try to weld this up, and it really wouldn't help you at all. So there's some rust holes in it, and the best way to fill these and fill all this stuff here where it's pitted, basically that's what I'm going to do. Fill the rust holes with something here, and then I'm going to fill in the pitted stuff basically with body filler. So this is already primed with an epoxy primer, or not epoxy primer, but a good urethane primer. Underneath has already been treated, so that all the scaling rust was removed, and then I put this product, which is available on Amazon, on the metal, and what that does is it converts the rust into a non-rusting tannic oxide, which is not rusting material, and makes the rust so it's completely dormant, and so it won't rust out again. But I do need to make it look good, so that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this in with something. Let's take a look at it. So what I have here is Pour 15. There's a few different brands of this type of stuff, but this one, I'm going to talk about this one in particular. This is available online, different places. I'm not sure where you can get it, but you have to kind of look around. Some of the body shop supply places have it. And what this is for exactly what I'm doing. Is to knead up and fill rust holes or fill holes. But as long as they're treated and cured, make sure that they have to be treated first, and the rust has to be non-rusting. If you don't, it'll come back and get you at a future date. This way it is a long-lasting repair. I mean, you're not going to stop rust forever, but it can make it so dormant that really in your lifetime probably it will never rust again if you use one of those products. So anyway, you take these two, they have an A and a B, you knead them together, and then it is actually water soluble. So I've got a bucket here of water, and I'm going to go ahead and knead this up, and we'll put some on there, and I'll show you how it works. So you knead this up in equal parts. This putty's a little old, but I'm sure it'll actually work just fine. You knead it up, get it really, I just really work it for a while. At first, when you first start using it, it's really stiff. But it just depends on it. Like I said, this stuff is an old putty. I've had this for a couple of years. I'm sure it'll still work. Might take me a little more time. Then what I might do is just get a little bit wet. Get my fingers wet. Kind of use it, kind of help. It kind of softens it. And then that'll kind of mix into the stuff. And I need this for a good 5 minutes. So I just take and twist it together, equal parts. Twist it, do whatever. Sometimes I take and go like this with this stuff. If you do some of the other putties, you do that and it gets too hot, and it'll start giving you problems. This stuff's a little bit more forgiving. You know, it gives you a little more time to work with. That's why I like this putty. There's other ones out there, this one here, but I like this one because it takes a good, you give it, I don't know how many minutes it is, but it might say in the label, but it does give you a bit of time. I'd say maybe 5 or 10 minutes or so, and which is a long time, you know. So the other putties, I've had them start to get hard before I even get a chance to use them. Some of the ones you get at the auto parts store, which they have something similar over there, like Permatex and stuff like that. They make it. So I'll bring you guys back in a minute. I'm going to knead this for a little bit. All right, so about mixed up here. Go ahead and I'm going to do that in the last little bit. If you see how I do that, once I get it, when it's a little fresher, it's a little easier to do. Some of the, like I said, some of the other putties, you do this with them and they'll get too hot and it won't. So that's pretty well mixed up right there. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick off a little piece here, shove it in the areas where I want to fill. So I'm going to take this, got a little rust hole there. And then what you do, you get your fingers wet with the water, and the water kind of helps it smear. So you can actually kind of use the water, and like some people will tell you that this stuff you have to use it over bare metal. It does not say that anywhere on the package. So I've always done it this way. It adheres really well, and I have no problems with just using it right over the primer. So I don't know, that's up to you. I wouldn't put it on bare metal myself, because when you put the water with it, you're going to create rust, and then you're going to defeat the purpose of the product. So, but you can really smear the stuff out if you get your fingers wet. If you can kind of see that. Let's see if we can guys get a little closer. There you go. And you can get your fingers wet a few times. There's enough time with this stuff that you can really work it out. And it's 100% sandable. So you can even fill even the rust pits in with it. It's nice and strong. And then what I use is to sand this, I'll use and see how you can just smear it with your finger if you have that fingers wet like that. It'll feel like when you're putting it on that it's not going to adhere. You put it down and there'll be areas where you think, oh, it's going to lift off or whatever. But once it starts getting into the drying process, it actually starts to adhere really well. Let's move you guys over here so you can see a little bit better. How's that? A little closer. How about that? I don't know, that's kind of in your face, isn't it? Right there, I would say. Hopefully you can see okay. But yeah, you just work it into the holes and fill it. Now the other thing you can do is go on the other side with your hand and kind of smear it around so they don't stick out too far. So I forgot I was going to do. When I'm making a video, sometimes I tend to make mistakes because I'm thinking about the video and not really thinking about what I'm doing. So I love it when people make those comments. They make comments, negative comments, and they've never made a video in their life, so they don't know what we're going through. So anyway, you know, I'm less good at making videos than I am actually at doing the work. So some people are better at making videos than they are doing the work. And if I was going to learn from somebody, I'd watch a terrible video of someone who knows what they're doing versus watching an excellent video of somebody who's knows how to make a great video. You know, I want to learn things. I don't want to, you know, I can't learn from somebody who doesn't have experience. So, myself. Anyway, that's what we're going to do. Go ahead and finish this up. We'll take a look at it when I'm all done and see how that turned out. Oh, you guys are blurry. Sorry about that. That's weird. Autofocus went on holiday. Okay, so I'll bring you guys back in a minute. We'll check it out. All right, so here's what we ended up with. All the holes are filled in. You know, the roughness is still there. I'm actually going to fill that with polyester glazing. So what I'll do tomorrow is I'll let this dry for, it does take a few hours for this to dry. I usually let it dry for 4 to 6 hours or something like that. You know, and then I'll just go through here and sand it down. You can use, you know, 40, 60, 80, whatever you want to use for grit. Even 150 or 220, you can smooth it out, finish it. It sands a little harder than, say, Bondo or something like that. It's a little harder to sand. So you really want to try and get it on there as smooth as possible. So you don't want to leave it too lumpy. Unless there's an area where you can, you know, really put a sander on it, then it doesn't take long at all to sand it. But in here, this is like smaller than a 5-inch sander, so it's really hard to sand with like a DA. You'd have to use like a mouse sander or something like that. That's usually what I use. I don't know where mine's at right now, but what I'll do is I'll sand this down a little bit, probably by hand, yeah, and then I'll go ahead and refill everything, all the other parts with glazing, and then I'll prime it a couple times. It is kind of hard to work on this tray. These take me a lot of time. So that's how I do this. I'll talk to you guys in the next portion. Alright, looks like we got our video working right. Just kind of crapping out on me a couple times. A little bit of sanding here with some 60. 60 or 80, you know, it just depends. I got some 80 here too, but here with a little 60, then it down a little 80. Especially in these corners, boy, it's like slow sanding. You can see this putty actually sands pretty good. Let me go back to this one here, this mountain. Maybe I'll get something a little bit more aggressive on that for a second. So anyway, I'm going to use something a little more aggressive. It's a little tricky to use that DA in there. You can see if you're putting it down, you think that it's not going to stick very good. Blow this off, we'll take a look at it. How are we looking now? Probably just put a little more primer on there, and then I'll put some more filler on here. Just use the spray can because it's quick. So this is where your time comes in. Blow this off real quick. So let's go up here and take a look. Could do a little bit more by hand. Put all these package sprays all over this thing. You can see it does like a filler that adheres around the edges. Works really good. This is the fun part. I really don't like doing these package sprays. I usually use like a mouse sander. I don't know where it's at right now. Those are really handy for doing stuff like this. You can get in the corners really nice, those little mouse sanders. But getting in this very little rounded area, almost got to do it all with by hand. So it's a pain in the butt. Anyway, I'll bring you guys back in a little bit. We'll take a look at it a little bit later. Anybody wonder how these turned out? Yeah, that's Tamco Clear. It's got a lot of dust on it right now, but it's just dust. Super smooth. Yep. Even this one looks pretty good. A little bit of orange peel. It's down low. Won't matter. A little bit on the top too. But who cares? Fine inside the engine part. I could always buff it if I wanted to, but I'm not gonna. Definitely not gonna buff that. There's no reason to me, especially down that low. And this looks great. All the color sanded buff this for sure, but it won't need much. Alright, so moving along here. Got a lot of this thing sanded. I was using this thing here because it's a lot faster than sanding by hand in these little corners and stuff, knocking off the bigger stuff. Still, you know, it doesn't do the greatest job. You have to really shape it for that stuff. These I just do it by hand. Use a heavy grit for first, and then keep getting finer until get it all done. Then I use the DA a little bit right here. Doesn't do a very good job, and you can't get in the corners very good with it. It's a pain. shoot a little bit of this stuff just to see. I'll sand it one more time real quick after that, and then go with some heavier stuff. I don't know. I can never get these things perfect. They're always beat. It's so hard to get in these corners. I just don't have the patience to spend 3 or 4 days on it. But it certainly looks better than it did. Especially you can only see like 2 inches of that. So you can still see in some of the edgy stuff in there. I missed this whole piece right here. So I'll put a little more on that maybe. Try and do really narrow fills, and then I use that really fast sanding filler, because if you use some like regular filler on here, oh my god, just get a wire wheel out and strip it off, you know, and just take it all off and then start over, because you got to use like AG47 or the what's it called again, USC Pro Glaze. So I'll mix up a little more of that right now. Do that one there. I don't know, maybe I'll sand it a little bit. I'm not going to do that much more to it really. Prime it one more time. Paint it. And like I said, all you see is, you can't even see down in there. It's about that much of it that you can see in there, and you can't even tell if that's pitted or anything underneath there. So there's no sense in spending that much time on it. Alright, I'll talk to you guys in the next video. We'll move on. Come back, maybe see this painted in another video. Talk to you next one. Please like, share, and subscribe.